Hello, welcome back to plantcare.club, where we care about your plants. On this show, we do three things. Number one, we talk about your plants indoor and outdoor. Number two, we talk about new items that are coming to the market, soil, pots, new plants that are actually coming out. Number three, we answer your questions. So if you have any questions that come up while you're listening to this, specific, general, if you are brand new to having plants or you've had them for a very long time, doesn't matter. Send in your questions. Any questions are great. My name is Fred. I've been in the horticultural space for about 6 years on the wholesale greenhouse side. So we are in Canada. We grow everything from spring annuals to garden mums and poinsettias. And we have another division that is in Florida where we grow palms, ferns, and indoor houseplants as well. We sell them across Canada and the United States. So the point of this show is to bring some perspective from our side, the wholesale grower side, to give you a little bit more information on what's coming, what we like, what we don't like, and what you should look for when you're going out to actually purchase your plants. So we are still talking about poinsettias, and today we decided to do something different that a listener actually suggested. We went to Chat GPT and we asked, for anyone that doesn't know, Chat GPT is an AI large language model. You can ask it questions and it will just answer questions for you. So we asked it, what are the top 10 questions that people have about poinsettias? So today we're going to try to answer those. Starting with the first one. First question that people had about their poinsettias. Why are my poinsettia leaves turning yellow or falling off? So this one is, definitely hits the nail on the head. This is a common question. I get asked this every single year around the holidays. Why I've had my poinsettia for 2 or 3 weeks and the leaves are falling off. Now, I have given my doctor explanation a bunch of times, but bear with me, I'm going to do it again. So when you go to the doctor, you sit down in the chair, you say, "Doctor, I have this problem." The doctor's going to look at you and say, "Okay, try this little thing, and then come back in 3 or 4 weeks. And if nothing has changed, then you're going to try something else. You're going to try something else. And eventually maybe they give you a pill, maybe they do this. But they want to change one thing at a time in order to figure out exactly what is the cause of your problem. If you go to your doctor and they say, "Oh, here's 12 things I want you to do all at once," well then what's the solution to your problem? You don't know. It's one of those 12 things. Who knows? So generally that's how doctors work. 1, 2, 3, they work down the chain. When someone asks a question like this, exactly why are my leaves falling off, I can't give you an exact answer. There could be one of many different reasons. But most commonly, the most common answer to this question is the yellow leaves are from a nutrient deficiency in the soil. So when these poinsettias are at the greenhouse, they're being fed fertilizer. They're being fed all the nutrients into the soil, and they soak it up through the roots. Everything's great. Now, when the plant comes to your home, if you don't have some kind of fertilizer, if you are using tap water, and let's say you're using tap water quite often, what's happening is the nutrients that might be in that soil are being flushed out by brand new tap water that is being put in. So that's part of the reason why we say, hey, don't water it too often, because when it leaves the greenhouse, it's got a whole bunch of nutrients charged up in that soil, and it should be able to last all the way to Christmas. Or at least a few weeks. But if you get it and say, "Oh, I'm going to pour a whole bunch of water on and let it all drain out the bottom," you're letting a lot of that nutrients, a lot of that fertilizer drain right out the bottom of the pot. So you have to think about, another question is about watering that I see down here, so I'm not going to spoil that. But yeah, yellow leaves, likely due to nutrient deficiency. To fix that, give it some fertilizer. Question number 2, how often should I water my poinsettia? Great, we just started to touch on this. Watering your poinsettia, the easy way is when the top of the poinsettia looks relatively dry, you pick it up and it feels pretty dry. Now I'm picturing a 6-inch poinsettia in my head, so you can pick it up and you can kind of feel the weight of it. If it feels sort of heavy, then okay, it might not need some water. Another little trick that you can do, if you have a 6-inch poinsettia and it's got like a foil around it, take the foil off, look in the bottom, look at the bottom holes. If those holes are all dry, if you can see the soil there and the soil is dry, that's a good indication that, yeah, maybe it needs some water. With an 8-inch poinsettia, the larger the hole, the easier it is to see. Now, if you really want to get more specific, take the poinsettia, take a 6-inch poinsettia. Now, let's say the pot is here, and I'm going to try to explain this if you're listening. I will try to explain this as best I can. So if you've got your 6-inch poinsettia that's sitting in front of you, and you open up your hand and you spread it across the soil with the stem sitting between some of your fingers, you flip it upside down and you squeeze the bottom of the pot, that pot should come right off. And what you're left with is all of the soil, and then you can see the roots on the very top. So you can see the roots that are going down the side of the pot, and all of the soil is sitting there. Now look at that soil and see how dry is it. This gives you a really good barometer of, okay, all my soil is completely dry. It's not even like a dark brown. It's now like a very light brown. Okay, this is definitely the time you got to water that poinsettia. Generally, that's going to be once every 3-4 days, I would say, depending on the size of the pot. Smaller poinsettia, you might need to water more often. Larger poinsettia, maybe not as often. But every single situation is going to be different. How warm it is in your area is going to affect that as well. So it's case dependent. 3-4 days is a good idea for it. How do I care for my poinsettias? This is too big of a question. Chat GPT, way too big of a question. I actually did an entire other show on exactly how to care for your poinsettias, so I would refer you to a different show. I'll put it in the show notes. Can I get a poinsettia to rebloom next year? Yes, you can, but that is expert mode. That is very difficult. That is very, 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 very hard. Very hard. I actually can't state how hard that would be. Now, to get it to rebloom is going to be one thing. To get it to rebloom but also look nice, that's where it's going to be very hard. So the reason it's going to be hard is because your poinsettia, as it moves out of Christmas or out of the holidays and into the darker months of the year, so up in Canada, that would be January, February, March. It's going to drop a lot of leaves, probably a lot of the bottom leaves. You're going to be left with more of the top leaves. Then from March until June, it is going to start growing, and it is going to really start stretching. So it's unregulated growth because it's soaking up some of the nutrients that are left in the soil. Maybe you're fertilizing it, and it is just growing. It is going. Depending on the genetics, maybe it grows more steadily and slowly, or maybe it is just a wild animal and it's going crazy. So it will grow all the way through the summer as well. It's going to keep growing. And then the hard part is when you hit the fall. So in the fall, growers or wholesale greenhouses use different chemicals and use different tricks to tell the poinsettia that, hey, it's time for you to go from being green and growing to blooming. Some of these tricks are, as I mentioned, chemicals. Others are, there's shade that sits at the roof of the greenhouse, and that shade can actually trick the plant into thinking that it's later in the year. And once the plant thinks, oh, it must be October, when it's really September, the plant says, if it's October, I must start blooming now so that I'm ready for December when I'm in full bloom. And the plant gets tricked. So if you're doing something like that, try to reduce the light level the plant is going to be exposed to in, let's say, September-ish of the following year. And that is going to help you get your plant to bloom at the right time. I missed a few slides here, so I'm just catching up. Boom, boom, boom. So that wreath is for the next year's Christmas. Question number 5. Are they toxic to pets or children? Short answer is yes. Yes, there is toxicity in a poinsettia. There is toxicity in a lot of houseplants, in a lot of plants that are outside and inside of your house. There's 2 ways that toxicity can be in that plant. Number 1, it can be in the genetics of the plant, where it's a defense mechanism against being eaten in the wild. So they have something in, if you break off a piece of your poinsettia and you see all that white pus coming out, where it looks like blood, but it's really just, it has the same kind of properties of blood, where it kind of comes out of the stem, but it's white. It's like sap. Yeah, that is an example of what would be toxic. Or it can be something that's actually in the soil. So something that the grower has used to, let's say, attack some bugs. If the grower has a bunch of bugs, they might use a certain chemical to attack some of those bugs, and the plant soaks up that chemical. Well, now all of a sudden, if you eat that plant, you're going to have trace amounts of that chemical in you as well. So that is where the toxicity is. Now, my rebuttal to that is, in order for this to really affect your pets or a small human, you would have to eat so much of a poinsettia that you really couldn't do it. Now, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. If you have questions, go to see a vet, go to see a doctor. Not medical advice in any way, but I would say, oh, here's a good example. I have a dog. His name's Oliver, and we have another dog at the greenhouse as well. His name is Wadsworth. So between the two of them, they are at the greenhouse 12 hours a day, 8 to 12 hours a day, every single day. And I have seen my dog, he's part lab. So anyone that has a lab out there, you're going to know. You have seen labs eat absolutely everything. And I have seen my dog eat poinsettias. He has eaten them, and he is completely okay. He weighs about 55 pounds. He is completely okay. And why? Well, because for him to actually get sick, he would have to eat so many poinsettias. He would have to eat a whole 12-inch pot, at least 3 or 4 plants, all the way from the top, all the way down to the soil, and maybe even another one as well. And before he gets there, he's either going to think, this doesn't taste good, I don't want to keep doing this, or he's probably going to puke. Now, there are the horror stories of pets that have been negatively affected, or small children that have been negatively affected. And if you're really, really concerned about this, then you know what, maybe it's not the right plant for you. But as far as risk level, I don't think this is the biggest risk. It's relatively small, and in my experience, I've never had or met someone that has had a bad experience with that. So, question number 6. Why are there white dots on the leaves? So I read this and I thought, ooh, okay, well, I understand where this is. So this is a bug. These are probably bugs. As soon as I hear white dots and poinsettias, I think, oh no. Oh no. For any grower that's been out there, this is generally a pest called whitefly. Whitefly are the nemesis of poinsettias. Whitefly and poinsettias, they are constantly fighting each other. So in the fall, when poinsettias are growing and they're in their great growth stage through, let's say, September and early October, it's warm enough that the vents of a greenhouse are open to get some more fresh air into the greenhouse. All of that is great. Or doors are left open here and there to get some more air in. And naturally, because it's exposed to outside, there are going to be pests that are going to fly in. Now, whitefly are generally one of these pests. And they are hard to attack because how quickly they can breed and how they eat the poinsettias. So on the bottom sides of the leaves are where a whitefly is going to live, or it's going to lay its eggs. So when it lays the egg, it lays it near the stem of the leaf, and the egg is going to be attached to the bottom of the leaf, and it's sucking nutrients out of that plant until the day that it decides to hatch. And then it hatches, and now it's a white fly. It's a very small little bug, but it will fly around. If you pick up your poinsettia and a white fly is on it, it will likely just take off and fly into the air, and you would see it flying around. If you are looking for poinsettias in a store, great idea to check for these. So maybe you are taking a poinsettia. A good way to start is, okay, give it a little shake, see if anything comes off. Nothing comes off, good. Go to the bottom leaves. So not the top ones that are all red or white, marble, whatever it is. Go down to some of the lower ones, take the leaf and just gently turn it over and see if there's any white dots on the bottom of that. If there are any white dots, that's a problem. Now, the other issue with whitefly is if you buy that poinsettia, you bring it into your home, now all of a sudden it can go after every other plant you have at your home. Very hard to stop. We could do something on whitefly and pests in general in the future, because it can be such a pain and such a problem. So if you see those white dots, steer clear. If you see those white dots and it's already in your house, at the very least, move it to a different area away from the other houseplants. If not, if you really want to go the next mile, I would say get rid of it, get a new one in the door, because that plant those bugs can spread very quickly. Okay, next up, temperature. Temperature for poinsettias. Temperature is generally between, let's say, 58 Fahrenheit all the way up to sometimes 70 Fahrenheit in a greenhouse. Now, keep in mind at the growth stage, when in the summer and all the way through September, the inside of a greenhouse can get very warm. Poinsettias might feel over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in their growth stage in the summer. But when it is being shipped to a store, usually it's cooler in the northern hemisphere, so the temperature inside the greenhouse will be between that 58 at the lowest up to 70 degrees at the very highest, and generally it's I would say 65 even, but I'll say 70 just to maybe encapsulate all of the different growers and their different methods of doing it. So if you are bringing it into your own home, if you fall into this range of where the temperature is, great. Okay, that's awesome. If not, I'm not suggesting that you need to change the temperature of your home just to match a poinsettia. If you have different heating in your house, like if, for example, you have a wood stove or you have heat that's coming not in an even way, it's coming from different areas of your house, then consider putting your poinsettia a little bit further away from that, because if it's too close, it'll A, dry out your poinsettia a lot faster, and B, could potentially shock the plant into saying, oh my gosh, this is way too hot. Something is going wrong. I need to drop some leaves. I need to prepare for the worst because something crazy is happening. So don't shock the plants. Try to put it into a different area if your heat is a little bit less even. Next up, light. How much light does it need? Poinsettias want bright, indirect sunlight. Very common across many different types of plants. Bright, indirect sunlight. I wouldn't use grow lights. You don't really need to do that with poinsettias. They are a crop that sits in your house for usually 3 or 4 weeks, unless you want to do expert mode and keep it around for a lot longer. So I don't think you need to do any artificial light or keep anything. Set it somewhere near a window so that it can see what time it is, so that it can feel the different changes. Okay, how long are my days? And it can soak up a lot of that nutrients that the sun is giving it, but I don't think you need to go over the top as far as light goes. Can I plant it outside after the holidays? The answer is yes, if you live in the right climate. I remember going to Florida in January and seeing poinsettias planted in garden beds outside of someone's home, which is great to see. At that point in January, I want to no longer see any more poinsettias, because we're really, in my mind, we are past that. We're now looking at the spring. We're now looking at Valentine's Day and some of those other exciting spring holidays that are coming up. So, but if you want to plant it outside and you live in an area where it doesn't freeze, go for it. Yeah, see how it does. There's nothing to lose there. So yeah, go for it. Finally, how often do I fertilize it? I would fertilize it by watching the bottom leaves of the plant. So I mentioned earlier that those bottom leaves usually come in as a very dark green. If they start to turn yellow, actually, you know what? That was question number one. That was the why are they turning yellow or falling off? So yeah, as those bottom leaves, if they begin to turn yellow or they start to look a little bit of a different shade from when you got it, then add some fertilizer. Give that thing some more nutrients, because that's what it's looking for. If you don't, it's going to start dropping those leaves, and we are all the way back around to question number one. You're answering that one then. Okay, well, that concludes the 10 questions that I got from Chat GPT. If you had any questions this spurred on, please send it to us at plantcare.club. That is the website, by the way, plantcare.club. It's not plantcare.com or .ca or anything like that. It's actually .club. But yeah, if you have any questions, if you like the show and you want to share it with a friend, please do so. But if not, I will talk to you again very soon. Thanks.